You never touch a gun. You just mix chemicals in a room with no windows. $200 of raw material is worth $20 million on American streets. You are the most valuable person in a billion-dollar operation. That's exactly why you'll never leave. You can't leave. Breaking Bad is a TV show. This is Sinaloa. Walter White got to want this, but you just needed the money. He was also a teacher, and you are still a student. That's how young they're taking them now. And the real cartel doesn't wait for people to come to them. El Peon. At 16, you live in a town outside Culiacan, where your father grew corn until the cartel told him not to. Now you move drums. 50-liter plastic drums with Chinese labels you can't read. They smell like acetone and something else. Something sharp that makes your eyes water. You don't ask what's in them. You just move them from the truck to the back room and then mop the floor and go home. You make 400 pesos a week, about $20. Your cousin works here too. There are no masks, so you both wear rags over your faces, but the smell still gives you both headaches. You're only furniture, and you're cheaper to replace than a drum. El Prensador, the pill presser. You're 17. They moved you inside. The room is small with only one window, and that is painted over. In the center is a machine about the size of a washing machine. The pill press. It takes powder and compresses it into tablets. M30. That's what they're called. They look exactly like prescription oxycodone. Same color, same shape, same imprint. You feed the machine and then stack the output into plastic bags. On a good day, 150,000 pills. That's $90,000 worth of product here in Sinaloa. On American streets, it's worth 10 times that. You don't think about American streets. You only think about filling the bags and stacking them. You make 2,500 pesos a week, or 140 US dollars. The dust in the room is white and fine. You try not to breathe it. One of the older workers told you 2 milligrams can kill a person. You don't know how much is floating in the air. Nobody does. El cocinero, the cook. You're 19. A man watched you work for 2 years. Reliable, quiet, good hands. He pulls you aside. He says the cartel is moving you up. You're going to learn the recipe. You expect chemistry. What you get is closer to cooking. Someone shows you which drums to open, in what order, at what temperature. You follow the steps. The fentanyl comes out as powder. You press it into pills. One of the experienced cooks tells you it's like making chicken soup. He's not wrong. You don't need a degree. You just need to not make mistakes. The lab is a converted farmhouse 40 minutes outside the city. Concrete floors. A single bare bulb. The cartel has 3 others just like it within 20 kilometers. If one gets raided, production moves to the next. You're not told where the others are. You don't ask. You make 14,000 pesos a month, about $800, twice what a legitimate chemist makes in Mexico. You tell your mother you got a job at a pharmaceutical plant, and she believes you. Or at least she acts like she does. El estudiante, the student. You're 20, still enrolled at the university in Culiacan, 2nd year. Chemistry. You're good at this. Not follow the recipe good, but understand why it works good. A man approaches you after class. He's dressed like a janitor. He says he's heard good things. He says the cartel is staffing up for a project. He says, you decide if you're interested. They offer $800 up front. $800 a month, see, your tuition covered. You say yes. Your job is different from the cooks. You run experiments. You're trying to make the fentanyl stronger, more addictive. You're also working on a bigger problem. The precursor chemicals come from China, and China keeps cutting off the supply. The cartel wants to synthesize the precursors themselves. If you figure that out, a recruiter tells you, it changes everything. It would make them the kings of Mexico. You work in a lab an hour's flight from Culiacan. Small cartel aircraft. You wear a hazmat suit. Underneath it, you're still wearing your university shirt. El jefe del laboratorio, the lab manager. You're 24. You run a lab now. 8 workers. 2 cooks, 3 pressers, 2 peones, 1 guard. You manage chemical deliveries. Drums arriving from front companies. labels that say fertilizer or cleaning supplies. You manage output targets. The regional operator wants 100,000 pills a week. You make sure he gets them. You also manage problems. When one of your cooks starts using, you handle it. A year ago, you would have thought a lot about that after it happened. But now, you don't think about it after. The lab moves every few months. A different farmhouse, a different warehouse on the outskirts of a different town. The cartel's security team handles the relocations. You just show up at the new location and start again. You make between $5,000 and $10,000 a month. You have a truck. You tell people you're in logistics, because you technically are. You're also the person who knows where 3 labs are, how they operate, and who runs them. That knowledge used to feel like power. Now it feels like weight. Especialista, the precursor specialist. You did it. 3 years of experiments, failed batches. One explosion that took 2 fingers off a cook's left hand. But you cracked it. Now you can synthesize the key precursor chemicals from scratch. No supply chain from China. No choke point for the DEA or the State Department to squeeze. You figured it out. The cartel moves you to a facility in Sinaloa with real equipment. Lab-grade glassware, industrial ventilation, a generator the size of a shipping container, armed guards outside at all times. You don't go anywhere without an escort. You make $20,000 a month, sometimes more. You have an apartment in Culiacan. You did not choose where it is. You do not choose who has a key. Somewhere in Washington, DEA analysts are trying to understand why precursor seizures aren't slowing production. The answer is you. You are the reason. You think about that sometimes, late in the lab when the guards have changed and it's quiet, and all you can hear is the ventilation system pulling poison out of the air. Then you go back to work. El Fantasma, the ghost. You are the most protected person in the Sinaloa cartel. You are also the most imprisoned. Your face has been surgically altered twice. You move between safe houses on a schedule you don't control. You can only communicate through a handler. You don't have a phone or access to the internet. You have a lab, an armed detail, and a formula worth billions. Your monthly payment arrives in cash, delivered by a man who doesn't tell you his name. You haven't seen your family in 3 years. You were told that was for their protection. Maybe it was. A broker in Queens once moved enough of your product to supply 2 billion doses to American streets. You never met him. You never will. Somewhere in a DEA threat assessment, your work is described as the greatest synthetic drug crisis the United States has ever faced. They don't know your name. Nobody outside this organization knows your name or where you are at any time. That was the deal. You just didn't understand what it meant when you signed on. El fin. The end. The formula is written down now. You trained your successor. The cartel insisted. That was 6 months ago. Since then, the work has slowed. Your handler visits less, but the guards rotate more often, which means they trust you less, or they don't need you to trust them anymore. One morning, a car arrives you don't recognize. The man inside doesn't speak. He just looks at you. You think about the peones who moved drums they couldn't read. You think about how they were furniture. How the only people who become furniture are the ones the operation no longer needs. The car is waiting. You get in. From now on, your successor manages the work. The cartel doesn't mourn formulas. It just uses them. Somewhere in Culiacan, a new man is standing in a room with no windows, following your recipe, pressing your pills, breathing your dust. He's 19. He doesn't know your name. He doesn't need to. He just needed the money too.